is when you speak to MPs about that defection, about the locals, about the meeting, about the general, about Robert Jenrick, they sort of shrug and say, yeah, no, it's not great, but what does it really add up to? And I
Yeah.
think that is really the problem for the Tory party
Yeah,
right
just
now.
a lack of direction, a lack of a sense of purpose. After those disastrous elections, local elections last week, we've seen Tory MPs pulling back from a coup against the Prime Minister, but there are signs of the PM's authority gurgling away, aren't there? Robert Jenrick, former immigration minister in the cabinet, demanding a total change of migration policy this side of the election and taking a swipe at Rishi Sunak's pet policy initiatives.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think, Robert Jenrick has credibility in this area. He was a former minister. He has very strong views on it. I mean, he's called for the Home Office to be divided in two. And it's not exactly the best time for the Prime Minister to be having this conversation. He's still yet to get those flights off to Rwanda. There are some big concerns about the level of legal immigration into this country. And it really, what it is, John, at the heart of it, is this battle for the future of the Tory party.
Yes.
And I have to say, it's a really funny mood here in Westminster because there aren't as many MPs as you might expect. The ones that are here, they just don't really know what to do with themselves. There's a feeling that, even Robert Jenrick's intervention today, it's an interesting conversation topic. It's an interesting idea, but it doesn't really go anywhere in terms of moving the party forward. It's not going to put huge amounts of pressure on the Prime Minister because it doesn't come with a threat to his authority.
Yeah.
And even that meeting, the Prime Minister and his campaign director, Isaac Levido, and the chairman of the party, Richard Holden, have invited MPs into Downing Street today to talk about the local elections and what happens next. My understanding is around 60 MPs turned up for that session. They were told about some of the data behind the local elections and the projections for the general. They walked away with a sense that, okay, fine, we're going to have to stick together if we're going to win any seats at all. One described it as sort of largely pro-unity. But there were definitely some MPs in there who were highly critical of Conservative campaign headquarters, the way that they ran those locals, and deeply sceptical about the way they'll run a general election. It just doesn't really go anywhere. And I think that's the mood here is when you speak to MPs about that defection, about the locals, about the meeting, about the general, about Robert Jenrick, they sort of shrug and say, yeah, no, it's not great, but what does it really add up to? And I
Yeah.
think that is really the problem for the Tory party
Yeah,
right now.
just a lack of direction, a lack of a sense of purpose. You've got that detailed leak in the Times today of cabinet ministers, verbatim quotes of cabinet ministers debating fundamental questions of how to lead the party into the election. Now, on another story, Kate, we've got you here with us. The Home Secretary has announced that Britain's going to be expelling the Russian attaché on the grounds that he's an undeclared military intelligence officer. Now, here's James Cleverly speaking in the Commons.
We have witnessed Russia engage in more brazen attempts to undermine our security, harm our people, and interfere in our democracies. And since the illegal invasion of Ukraine, the rhetoric, threats, accusations have only increased.
Right. Well, Kate, I mean, what do you think of this? I mean, the temperature between Britain and Russia, it's pretty chilly. Just seems to have dipped another degree, if that was possible.
Yeah, I do think this is actually quite significant. The fact that the UK has decided to expel this defense attaché tells you that, Russia clearly at some point has crossed a line. This will not have been a decision that was taken lightly. There were kind of a move from the Russian side to expel or to make things more difficult for the UK a couple of months ago. I think this should be seen in that light. But remember the role of this defence attaché. I mean, there's a general acceptance that they probably will be gathering intelligence while they are here in the
Yeah.
UK, but the government would put up with that in order to have this dialogue, this open dialogue, which in theory is supposed to avoid any needless escalation or misunderstanding. Now, to remove that person is to say, well, we're not going to use that channel anymore. And it does up the ante. And I think actually what you're hearing from the government is a tougher message here on Russia, that there are many MPs, many around the country, who've been calling for the government to get tough on China, who are not satisfied with the way that UK ministers have dealt with some of those data breaches, those attacks by China in recent weeks. I think what we're seeing now on Russia, certainly, and I wonder whether we might get more to come, even in rhetoric terms on China too, is a recognition that we can't let this stand. We have to do something, even if it does up the ante, up the stakes. And in a way, it's sort of taking that, not the fight's the wrong word, but it's taking that to Russia and saying, okay, enough. And this, and similar with China too. David Cameron is making a big speech tomorrow. We don't yet know what's in it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more of this type of language and a little bit more from the UK government in terms of we are going to sort of stand our ground here.
Yeah, there is a well-thumbed playbook for these things. We expel one of theirs, they expel one of ours. But how might this now escalate? Let's talk again a little bit later on, Kate. Thank you. Now, I want to welcome to the show Paul Mason, who's a journalist and Labour watcher of many years standing. Hello to you, Paul.
Hi, John.
What did you think of the Elphick defection?
Well, there's that line from The Wizard of Oz, isn't there? Dorothy delivers, "We're not in Kansas anymore." This is extraordinary. Look, I've been predicting for some time that the Conservative Party will start to fall apart in office. It's not like sort of falling apart and then losing office. It can't lose office. It can't simply, no one is moving sort of motions of no confidence in Rishi. They're not even signing the letters, but we're seeing it just literally fall apart.
Yeah.
Lee Anderson to reform, Lord Frost in the Lords writing today, we're doomed. There's nothing we can do. And then Ms. Elphick, I hope to see her, I'm a Labour supporter. I hope to see Natalie Elphick out on the doorstep, of course, in the election for the actual candidate, the Labour candidate, Mike Tapp.
Yeah,
and
but Paul, I mean, of course I hear what you say.
First meeting with Labour councillor, the Labour councillors who run Dover and Deal District Council.
Yeah, of course, Paul. It's Labour folk are going to like to see a Tory defecting for the most obvious reasons in the world. But Natalie Elphick, she's a right wing. She's a hawk on migration, and on Brexit. And a member of the Popular Conservative Group and the ERG. Can you imagine Natalie Elphick on any platform with Keir Starmer at any time?
Well, she's just been sitting behind him, hasn't she? Look,
that's a little bit disingenuous. This right-wing Conservative sharing a platform.
Straight answer, I doubt it. But Labour's going to form a government that I think is going to change people's lives for the better. And for me, anything that brings that moment forward or accentuates the size of Labour's majority is good. So I, as a left-wing member of the Labour Party, I say welcome, comrade Natalie Elphick. On the proviso that some of the things she said about Marcus Rashford, about refugees, could not be said by a Labour member and would be seen as bringing the party into disrepute.
Yeah, well, she didn't just say these things, Paul. Presumably she meant it when she said it. Are you concerned? Let me ask you this, Paul.
Yeah.
Are you concerned that maybe the Labour broad church just got just a little bit too broad?
Well, look, we're going to have to win an election with the votes of people who believe and say, probably in language that is less guarded, actually, say what Natalie Elphick says and thinks. No, that doesn't mean they're socialists. It doesn't mean that they're fully signed up to Labour. But if she will get out on the doorstep for Labour in Dover and Deal for the candidate who we've actually selected, I think, look, it's always good when one's opponent starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
I don't know what her motives are in doing this. I assume one also has to assume they're good motives. And I'll just bear in mind, I'm a historian of the Labour Party and the Labour movement, but remind people who are kind of up in arms about this, how terrible it is. We as a party built ourselves from nothing by converting conservative-minded, highly patriotic, working class people to socialism. And it wasn't easy. And in some cases, on many occasions, in the last 150 years, we've seen people do this because, look, she's on the front line. That's what your Kate McCann said. She's on the front line of the refugee crisis, and she's actually saying the Tory answers don't make sense. The Rwanda scheme, and on biosecurity. What she means by that is the Brexit, which she voted for and campaigned for, has produced a situation where goods are getting held up unnecessarily at the border, which is in her constituency, Dover Port. And if there's one person in Parliament who has a frontline seat for the problems of the refugee crisis and the Brexit trade problems, it's her. So I say again, if she wants any lessons of mentoring in the traditions of the Labour socialist tradition, I'll be happy to offer them. But it's either way, it's a tactical success for Keir Starmer.
Yeah, well, I can't dispute that it's a tactical tick, reason for Labour to smile today at any rate. Look, Paul, over many years, over successive administrations, I've seen a good many MPs cross the floor of the House of Commons this way and that. In every case, I've got to explain why I think that happened. This one looks rather more inexplicable. Does it testify to a lack of definition to Keir Starmer's Labour Party, which is an impression that a lot of people out there in the country have?
No, I think Labour's highly defined. Its project is highly defined now. The so-called 5 missions that Keir's set forward it's the prospectus. It's what, if you're a voter, you're signing up for. Higher growth achieved through green investment, safer streets achieved through investment in policing, a health service we can be proud of, and a first-class education for our kids, and more or less nothing else, apart from, of course, the fundamental defence of the realm, the defence of the United Kingdom, on which Labour is as strong as the Tories. So that is the Labour prospectus, and as the clearer that Labour can be that is what we're offering, and not, you don't, to sign up for that, you don't need to sign up for beliefs that are probably core and fundamental to people like me, or on multiculturalism and migration. I'm on the left of the party, but I will, to get rid of this government, because it's crunch time for democracy as well as the government.
Yeah.
We're seeing the government, suppress votes, voter ID, all the kind of rule changes for the recent mayoral elections. All of that needs to be put a stop to. And this country needs leadership, it needs direction. And I'd say to voters in Dover, ex-Tory voters, come on over.
Of course.
You may not
of
agree
course.
with everything we believe in, but you can at least sign up to those 5 missions.
Yeah, there's more work to do defining your party, isn't there?
Oh, I think, I mean, look, that's the offer. Defining the offer is the easy bit. Executing it in government, when you're faced with 101 different challenges, ranging from Vladimir Putin to climate change to indeed the patterns of migration and refugee flow may change and accentuate. All that's going to be difficult. And I hope the MP who will actually get to execute this in Dover is a guy called Mike Tapp, who probably is on the doorstep right now. Yeah. It's defining what we'd like to do is the easy bit.
All right, Paul, really, I've got to move on. You understand, you know how the deal goes. I'm very pressed for time always, but good to talk to you. Paul Mason, thank you.